Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Military Mondays. If you and I don't know each other, I am retired Major Brenda Sanchez, and I am the co-founder of Life's Real Currency with my husband, Michael Sanchez. And we actually wrote the best-selling book called Life's Real Currency. And I bring you these Military Mondays every single Monday morning, like clockwork at 8 a.m. Mountain Time, because that's the way we did it in the military, and that's the way I do it here. So I like to interview veteran business owners or spouses of veterans or currently serving military. And I have an amazing person on today that I met through a veterans networking group. So if you have a business of your own and you are a veteran, I highly recommend reaching out in your local area. If you're here in the Colorado Springs area, we have several here. You can reach out to me and I can get you connected. If you're not here, we have networking groups all across the country for veterans, and I highly recommend you get plugged in because you get to meet really amazing people like Dave that I have on today. So Dave is a retired senior master sergeant with the Air Force, of course, woohoo, best branch of the service, in my opinion. I know that we're going to have some haters now out there, but that's all right. So we met through a veteran networking group, and I just really connected with Dave, and I love what he does. So thank you so much for being on today, Dave. I look forward to sharing you and what you do with the audience today.
It is absolutely a pleasure to be with you here, Brenda, today. It's going to be a great conversation.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about you and your military career, what you did in the military, and then we'll get around to what you're doing today.
All right, great. So I joined the military many years ago, joined the Air Force as a young airman out of North Dakota. I'm looking forward to get my life started, if you will, as a young adult. Air Force was great for me for that. It was probably the best move of my life was the military. And so I joined there as a young airman, and I got into the administrative field. My last 8 years, I was working for one-star generals and helping the young airmen underneath that organization to kind of get their life on track, keep their life on track. And that was kind of where my career led me. And after 17 years of that, I joined the corporate world.
Awesome. And so what are some of those things that you believe you went to corporate before you owned your own business, but what are some of those skills that you learn in the service, especially in the Air Force, that you think make you either a great successful employee or better yet, a successful business owner today?
Yeah, no, that's an awesome question because as I got in the corporate world, I was in there as a manager and I started interviewing lots of people to fill positions that we had. And every time I got someone who was in the military, I always put them on the top of the list for interviews.
And the reason I was going to say, why is that?
Yeah, the reason I did that is because the military is absolutely awesome at teaching you leadership skills, discipline. What I really love is the teamwork, because you cannot be an individual in the military. You've got to work as a team. And the trust factor that comes in. I loved that integrity that the military people have. And I've always said that if you bring me the discipline, the leadership, the integrity, the trust, the teamwork, I can teach you the skills of the job. And so to me, the military is so great at teaching those things because we have to work as one unified team in the military.
Yeah, it's I think it's a lot of people that are in the military that are getting out, whether they go to corporate or they start their own business, they don't realize, most of them don't truly realize the skills that they learn in the military that really sets them apart and makes them unique from the other people applying for the job, or sets you apart as a business owner. So thank you for sharing that. So as a senior master sergeant, those last, I think you said 8 years, helping those young airmen, you and I had a discussion last week, and you found them constantly asking you life questions, coming to you and talking about buying a car or a house or things like that. So let's talk about that and how that led you to doing what you do today.
Yeah, well, thank you. My wife and I we've managed our money for many years, and when I was working for the general, helping those young airmen and young sergeants, they'd come in my office. They'd be living in the dormitories, for example, and they'd say, "Sergeant Geffre, I really want to get out and get my apartment and stuff." And I'd say, "Okay, well, let's sit down and see what you can afford." And so we'd lay out a budget for them. So I was able to help them do that. Also had young sergeants come in and say, "Dave, it's just so hard to make ends meet. What do we need to do? What do I need to do?" Well, you could, get a second job if you wanted to, but that's not always easy in the military. But we'd sit down and work their budget up with them. And I just fell in love with the ability to help them. And as some of those young airmen and young sergeants, some of them, spread the word that, "Hey, Dave can help you. Sergeant Geffre can help you." So it got to be kind of a little bit of a hobby for me to help these young folks. And in the end, it helped me too, kept my budgeting and working with my finances straight as well.
I was going to say, when you're helping others, it kind of forces you to do your own budgeting.
Yes.
And, why, I think of, I have a good background. My dad was a New York State auditor, so he was good with money, and so was my mom. So I'm blessed in that way, and not all people have that type of an upbringing where money was talked about. But I truly believe, as I put in the title of this, that I really think it helps. Budgeting helps you balance life. We talked about it last week. Money is probably one of the biggest issues when it comes to relationship issues and problems. And so let's talk about how you help people in creating a budget, because you are a Dave Ramsey coach,
Yep.
Financial Peace University. And what sets you apart? Why choose Dave and budget with Dave over somebody else who helps with budgets?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And, I'll say too that the number one cause of divorce in America, you can look this up on Google, number one cause of divorce in America is money. The number one cause of stresses across the American household is money. And so I've been teaching the Dave Ramsey course for about 12 years now. And one of the things that people came in there with was, look, I need to get a better control of my money. But yet we would go to session 6 or 7 out of 9 in the financial peace class, and most of the families still didn't have a budget done. And so I started inquiring and asking them, why is it that you don't have your budget finished? And they would say, because it's hard, Dave. It's hard. One, because, some of my spending habits, I don't want to give those up. And budget says I got to give that up. That's really not true. The other one is every time I sit down with my spouse, we end up getting in a big fight. So we just don't talk about money. And that doesn't solve anything. So it was at that point that I realized that, what, these folks need help. And so I set up this business, Budget with Dave. And in the business, what I do that I think is the niche that I bring is I sit down with the family and we create the budget together. So if there is some discussion that has to happen between the married couple, or the individual himself has to do some soul searching, they've got a coach sitting right beside them to do that. So often, and you can do the searches on the app programs, do the searches, you can do the searches through Google. Many of the places that offer budgeting support, they want to sell you a book or sell you an app or something to sell you, and then you still have to do the work yourself. And what I discovered from people who have done that is they order that, it comes in the mail, or they get it through an email, and they just throw it in the drawer. And so again, they need that one-on-one help. So in the budget service that I offer, we sit down in 2 sessions. The first session, we gather all the information. I will collect all the expenses from you, your income. I then work solely for a couple hours working on that budget for you. and fine tuning it. And then we meet a second time. And after that second time, the family is ready to run with a budget. And the budgeting time, and this is what is, I think is amazing. If people will follow the process I lay out for them, is about 30 to 60 minutes a month. And I assure everybody that budgeting, you do not have to give up the things that you love to do. We put that on the budget first and then budget the rest of the money around that. So you still are doing the things, the fun things you like to do, yet taking better control of managing your household money.
This talking about things you like to do. We're in the thick of the holidays, Dave, and
Yes,
people like to spend and love on their family and friends and clients at the holidays. And January comes and most people look at that because a lot of people, the majority of Americans, put it on the credit card.
yes.
And then the credit card bill comes in January and they aren't real happy with the bill.
That's right.
So we talked about this and I practiced this, is putting away a holiday, Christmas, whatever you want to call it, fund. And last week we were talking about, and I didn't even think about it until we were talking last week. And if, especially with the environment that we're in right now, a lot of people are eating out. They're doing Grubhub or something like that to just take some stress off. And I got thinking about it as we talked last week, that if they gave up one meal out, eating out, if it's a family once a month, that could be their holiday spending without going in debt.
Absolutely right. And we build that into the budget. So as I work with folks, anything that has these annual payments to them, like your in Colorado, the car license plate insurances, or the car license is so expensive. The plates, the tags, I guess is what I'm looking at. The tags are so expensive. And if you have a newer car, it can be $500, $600, $700 a year. And all of a sudden it comes due and the families panic. Where do I get that money from? Same thing with Christmas. If you set aside every month $50, that's $600 a year right there that you can spend for Christmas. Do another $50 and set that aside for your license plates. All those annual things like that. Is budgeting is just a matter of taking a look at all those bills, which ones are due quarterly, which ones are due annually. Sometimes auto insurances are paid every 6 months. Save so much every 6 months and you have the money, it doesn't become an emergency. And the more you can prevent using the credit card, the better you are, the better you're off. Because let's say that you spend $500, $600, $700, even $1,000 on Christmas this year, and you put it on a credit card. January, you're going to get your credit card bills, but most families are still paying for Christmases 2-3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you pay the minimums on credit card, it takes many, many years to pay off the debt. And so that's the idea, is to build that business and help those families to reduce their debt, get out of debt, and manage their money so that they don't have to use credit cards in their life.
And put away an emergency fund so that when you have to travel to see family in an emergency or something comes up, that the money's there, that you're not having to put it on credit card. Or I'm going to play devil's advocate, or maybe it's not devil's advocate. There's a lot of people out there that love the credit cards and love the paybacks, the rebates or the points they get for hotel rooms or travel or things like that. But you can put it on the credit card and get those points. But what if you had, most banks, at least my bank, I have a credit union, you can do sub accounts and you can have a Christmas, a vacation, an emergency fund, whatever those are, plates. And then when that bill comes due, it's already in the account and you're not trying to take it out of the main account. So you can still have all those perks,
right,
of the credit card bonuses or whatever you want to call them. So we talked a little bit about how you're different. How can people reach you, especially this time of year, if they know that that credit card bill is coming in January and they're convicted right now? They're like, yep, that's going to be me in a few weeks.
Yep.
How do people get a hold of you, Dave?
Yeah, so let's go there first. I want to go back to your conversation around setting up those emergency funds. So yeah, to get a hold of me, www.budgetwithdave.com. And I think it's showing at the bottom of my picture there. It shows there as well. So that'll take you out to my website, and then you can certainly inquire that way. Email me at budgetwithdave@gmail.com. And then both of those places will have, or the website will have my phone number there too, if you'd rather just make a phone call to that. So I'm going to go back a little bit to your conversation around having that emergency fund, because that's the first thing I set up with families. And I want to throw a statistic at you, a couple of them actually. So across America today, 78% of people are living paycheck to paycheck. What's really interesting, though, I find from that is that 69% of Americans have less than $1,000 saved. That's almost 70% of Americans. And, to break that down even further, 45% of those, so almost 50% of Americans have zero money saved. So if they woke up this morning and somebody slashed their tire, and I hope that never happens, and you got to buy new tires, that's absolutely a crisis for a family without an emergency fund. So that's the first thing I work at, is I work to help the family get $1,000 to $2,000 saved in an emergency fund. Then we work on tackling the debt. Then we go back up and we rebuild the emergency fund to a 3 to 6 months of living. And I've had several clients contact me when COVID hit in March. They said, Dave, I just want to let you know, I lost my job, but I know I got 6 months worth of money set aside. So I'm good. I can go out and find another job. I can, hope the company will hire me, whatever it is. And when you have that in place, it takes away the stress, the emergencies, and the crises that so many families have today.
Exactly. The other thing that I'd like to piggyback on that, Dave, is having a plan B. And that's what I teach, is having a plan B or a plan C, whatever you want to call it, having a side gig. You had your hobby or you had your side business of Budget with Dave before it became your full-time, what you do now, primarily. And I really think it's critical for families, whether it be the spouse or the person themselves, the main breadwinner, to have that side income, even if it's just $100 or $200 a month. I think the stat is that most families are $250 a month away from bankruptcy. If they just made $250 more, we wouldn't have as many bankruptcies filed as we do today. And so working with Dave, he can help you figure out where all that extra, because we talked about it last week when you and I talked, the credit card bill comes and you're like, but it was only $10 here and $20 there. And all of a sudden the credit card bill comes and it's thousands. And you're like, how did it get that high? And Dave can help you look at that with a microscope and figure out exactly what it is. Because a Starbucks coffee at $5 a day or $6 a day, times 30 days, if you're only doing one a day, it adds up. I'm not saying you can't have your Starbucks coffees in that, but maybe you do that as a treat versus an everyday occurrence so that you can get your credit card bills, and get yourself out of debt or start building. There are some people on here that maybe don't have debt, but they're still living paycheck to paycheck. What if you could put $25 away a month into an emergency fund, or talk to a financial advisor and put $25 or $50 away? 5, 10, 15, 20 years later, it's amazing what that tiny amount of money every single month, that consistency can create for you, and give you a cushion. So One last thing I want to ask before we actually two. One, what's something that maybe people don't know about Dave? A fun fact about Dave, so that they can get to know you a little bit more other than Budget with Dave.
Yeah, so I came from a very large family. I came from a family of 11 children, and I know there's
Wow.
families out there that have more kids than that, but very large family. One of the things that I always tell folks is when I was in the military, I had the pleasure of going down to Egypt for an exercise we did there. And I climbed to the top of the highest point in Egypt. I climbed the top of the pyramid.
Wow.
And when I got back down, there was a couple of us. When we got back down, the Egyptian police happened to pull up to the corner where we were at. And I sat in an Egyptian jail for 3 hours with a dirt floor until they could figure out what to do with us.
Wow.
Thankfully, I got released, but it was a story of a lifetime to sit in Egyptian jail while you could hear them arguing in Arabic back on the phone. Then they'd come and they'd argue with us, and then they'd go back and get on the phone again. Quite an experience.
And then the last question I have for you is, for those people that might be considering getting out of the service, or they're getting out, they're either retiring or they're separating within the next 3 to 5 years, what's one piece of advice you would give to them?
Yep, that's great. But I want to go back for a second and talk about, you talked about a while ago about just kind of saving some money and how we spend money. And I want to say that the number one thing that I hear from almost every individual or family that I work with is, Dave, I'm so embarrassed about my spending and what I've done. And I want to assure all of your viewers that it's not what you've done with your money that matters to me. What matters is, where are we going to go from here?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not going to sit at the table with you or sit on a Zoom call with you and judge you. I'm going to help you get from where you were to where you want to be. And that's so important. So don't ever worry about being embarrassed about your financial situation.
I'm glad you said that, because we did that did come up in conversation last week when you and I were talking, and so many people are embarrassed about where they are and where they've the hole that they've dug, and they don't want to share that with anybody, and that's why people continue to have problems with money. Exactly. And debt. So yeah, definitely reach out to Dave. And then that one piece of advice you have for somebody getting ready to get out.
Yep. If I could just hang on to that just for 1 second. And I also want to say that so often people think that, well, if I just made more money, I wouldn't have these money problems. And I want to share with people again, that's not what it's about. Where you are financially today is where you need to be with your budget. I help clients all the way from people who have nothing, who have thousands of dollars in debt, of all ages, all the way up to millionaires. I have millionaire clients who contact me, and you think, why would a millionaire need me for a budget? And they do it because, one, in retirement, they don't want to run out of money because it's very easy to spend, especially when you're in the years when you're not making anymore. And two, one in particular hired me several $1 million. They wanted to hire me because they wanted to manage their budget so that they could figure out how to give more. So I see the gamut of folks who from all ages that I can help out. So that's awesome. So now my one piece of advice, and that is, no matter where you are in the military, whether you're thinking about getting out in a month, a year, 5 years, I would say start documenting all of the skills that the military is teaching you. And there are lots of them. It doesn't matter what field you're in, you are getting specific skills. If you're in the computer industry, in the military, that converts relatively well. If you're an infantry in the military, sometimes people struggle with what the military is teaching them. But I will assure you that everything you are learning in the military, start writing down those skills and then start thinking about, how do I convert from a military mindset to a corporate mindset? Because putting on your resume that I was a tank driver or I was a gunnery sergeant, whatever your field was, that doesn't help the corporate world. They want to see the skills that you have. The military teaches us so much. They educate us. They send us all these schools, these specialty schools. They teach us leadership. Start capitalizing and writing those things down that you do. Convert them into a kind of what I call a military or a civilianese wording, and start putting your resumes together with that. And there's lots of people that can help you with resumes, but a lot of times you can do those yourself just with the help of Google. Point being, take the skills that you're learning in the military, find out how they convert, and then start thinking about the roles. And one other thing you might want to consider doing is, if you know that you want to get into a particular line of work when you get out of the military, start volunteering in an organization that you might be able to do some of that work today, because that might be your position when you get out.
Yeah, and volunteer or find somebody else who is already in that field and shadow them or ask them lots of questions, have them introduce you to other people. Go join a veteran networking group. Even if you're not out yet, you can still, like our VetNet, you can still pop in and join every once in a while. It's not an attendance requirement. You know, you got a Tuesday off, you pop in and you learn those skills because it's a safe environment. So thank you so much today, Dave. I know that we talked about this last week, but I forgot to ask beforehand, so I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Did you have any kind of an offer that for people who might be watching to reach out to you today?
I do. And I'll tell folks that, first of all, I'm very affordable. So what I mean by that is, I have not had a family yet that when they sat down with me, that we haven't been able to save my fee on their budget. So I will offer a 10% discount over the next 3 months to any of the clients that come through, and say, hey, I saw you on talking with Brenda, and I will offer them a 10% discount. And that'll be a great number for them too, to help them save a little money and put that extra 10% towards their emergency fund.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Dave. I really appreciate having you on, and look forward to seeing you and getting to know you better at our veterans networking group. And again, if you are a veteran yourself and you own a business, or maybe you're the spouse of a currently serving military member or a veteran and you have your own business, I would love to have a conversation with you and see if you would be a good fit for my Military Mondays. So with that, everyone, I would love to get to know all of you. Reach out to me privately, either Facebook message, or put something in the chat down below on this video, and I would love to reach out to you and get to know you better. So with that, have an amazing week, and I will see you next Monday on Military Mondays. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.